Okay, thanks for joining us on the Bow Trader podcast. So excited to be talking with Bill Vanderheyden today. He is the co-founder and lead engineer of the wildly popular Iron Will Outfitters. If you are in the archery industry, you have for sure by now heard of Iron Will broadheads before. They make the Iron Will broadheads. They make some hunting knives. They make some arrow components. Bill is just a wonderfully interesting guy to talk to, as you'll see as you listen in to the conversation. We talk about how he came up with the idea for the broadhead, why he wanted to do this broadhead, why he went with the design that he did, and we really just talk about a lot of details about the business, and I just really hope that you guys enjoy it. Listen in as we talk about Iron Will Outfitters and this sport that we love so much, the sport of bow hunting. Enjoy, folks. This is John with Bow Trader. Man, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with us to talk through this. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
We had one arrow discussion. It seems that we could talk about arrows pretty much as much as we want to. My gosh, there's so much to get into when you're talking about arrow flight and how to build an arrow and what is going to work best. And gosh, there's just so much to look at, so many factors to look at.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, there's a lot of details you can dig into there, but I think in general, you kind of keep it simple, and then to get fairly good results, and then dig into the fine details to perfect things. But
well, good deal. So I also got Bryce Farmer here with me. Bryce, you'll introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Bryce. Nice to meet you.
Hey, good to meet you, Bryce.
He and I have both started digging through some of Dr. Ashby's research on arrows and broadheads and everything, and oh my goodness,
it's a lot of information for sure.
Yeah, and I think there's some people run into some problems trying to apply what he did with the longbow and his testing many years ago to like modern compound bows. I've had many conversations with them, and we agree on many things, most things really, but there's a few things that if you just follow his recommendations, they can cause some problems kind of for modern compound hunters, I think, depending on what you're kind of hunting you're wanting to do.
Yeah, I mean, without getting too far into it, right out of the gate, man, an arrow that weighs over 1,000 grains is like, it's almost to the point of absurd, because I mean, like shooting at a whitetail. All right, number one, okay, I'm not going to shoot over probably max 40 yards, but still shooting something that's 1,000 grains at 40 yards. I don't know what I don't even know where the pin would need to be for something like that.
Yeah. I mean, sighting in for something like that would be interesting. They would be very spaced apart if you had a multi-pin sight, but my biggest thing is I find it hard to keep it simple with some people, especially if they've done their research, but they're just kind of getting into archery, and they hear all these things about heavy arrows and how just the heavier the better, but trying to explain to them what a realistic expectation of their flight and their abilities and restrictions are going to be when shooting at animals.
Yeah, and I generally tell people that there's a trade-off there, like you're saying. There's a trade-off between total mass and trajectory. So when people are trying to maximize penetration, I'll say, yeah, go as heavy as you can within the trajectory that you want. For me, that's right around 500 grains typically, where I still want to be able to shoot flat enough, shoot very long range, but yet get good penetration on, elk, even through the shoulder blade or whatever, get a pass through really. And, I'm able to do that with a 500 grain arrow, and, Iron Will broadhead on the front and the right veins on the back, and can shoot that really well at long range. So there's no need to go 650 plus or 700-800 like some people are doing. It'll give you a little bit of an increase in penetration with more mass, but there's a big trade-off there. So a lot of Ashby stuff was at 10, 15, 20 yards on dead Cape buffalo. A lot of his testing was, and so it's in a lot of his like Ranch Fairy and others that apply a lot of this stuff. Ranch Fairy sets up for 15-yard shots mainly. So it's, you don't really, trajectory doesn't matter too much at 15 yards.
Yeah.
So, there's a trade-off there for sure.
And really at 15 yards, neither do the veins. I mean, your veins are they're doing a little bit at 15 yards, but I mean, we probably, all three of us probably bear shaft tune at 10 and 20 yards to make sure our arrows are flying like we want them to. And yes, I understand once we put a broadhead on the front of that arrow, things change. But I mean, realistically, it takes, so if you're making a 15-yard shot, I mean, you've done more research on this, Bill, than I have by a long shot. So you tell me, but we've done stuff just where like I did some stuff trying to figure out, is there any validity to clocking your arrow? Because that's something that we get more than you would think, where people will come in and they'll say, hey, I want to clock my arrow so I can determine how I need to fletch them. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. Initially early on, I was like, all right, this is stupid. The first time a guy came in and did that, he was a very good friend of mine. I've known him for a very long time. He's been in archery for a long time, and he said he wanted to clock his arrows. And I knew what he meant, and I knew how he wanted to do it. And I said, yeah, sure, go on the range, go ahead, fine with me. And so then I started taking videos with a high-speed camera of arrows that I was shooting that I had fletched with a right helical. And out of the probably, the research that I've done has been extremely raw, very rough. Okay. Yeah. I'll admit to that. But I mean, it was, like in the first 5 yards, nothing's happening. The arrow is just coming out. The arrow almost looks like it's coming out like a knuckleball, probably 7 or 8 times out of 10 shots. That's what it looks like. And then once we get to somewhere around 5 yards or so, then the arrow really starts to spin. And, I mean, like I said, sometimes it would come out spinning more than others. And I don't know what the validity to that is. I like shooting with my arrows fletched with a right offset or a right helical. That's just what I like to do. And that's what I've done for a long time. Actually, somebody built my arrows for me that I hunted with this past season, and they were on a left helical, and they flew fine. I didn't have any issues out of them, but I mean that all boils down to broadhead selection too. So,
I first heard of that clocking thing. Oh, it's been at least 12 years ago, maybe 15 even. When I first heard of it, I tried it, shot bear shaft. I got like a quarter-inch left or counterclockwise rotation at like 10 feet, a quarter rotation. And I knew with the vanes at the time I was shooting, 2.5, 3 degree helical right. Well, from the high-speed camera, I knew that those vanes pretty quickly take over and spin it, and then it's spinning, one full revolution in like 8 inches to the right. So I thought, it's not worth worrying about that little bit of torque left coming out of the bow. The vanes are going to take it over pretty quickly, straighten it out. I mean, I do see it. So I kind of ignored it and said, don't worry about it for years. I know it's gotten to be a hot topic the last couple of years, and I've looked at it a bit more. I still fletch everything right. My different bows that I have with different strings on them seem to have a different degree of how much they clock, but generally they're clocking a little bit left. I don't know that I might dig into it some more, but I think we're starting to split hairs at that point. I don't see, I've heard a lot of pros are doing it now, but the ones I've talked to personally say it hasn't improved their accuracy. So I don't know that it's necessary.
Yeah.
And that's pros.
Yeah.
So
I think
between you and me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a whole lot more that goes into our accuracy than which way that arrow's wanting to spin naturally off the bow, if any of that I just said even makes sense. So I think there's so much more. I think we cause with our hands and the connection that we have with the bow, we have way more of an effect on that arrow's flight than how it wants to spin coming off the bow.
Yeah, I think, good form, a tuned bow, properly spined arrow, enough vein on the back for the broadhead size on the front. Those things are all going to be like 50% type, big improvements in accuracy. And then, I think things like cocking is down in a couple percent maybe, if anything. I'm not saying that there's no effect from it. I'm just saying that it's not an initial thing to worry about if you're just wanting to get better, especially if you're a new bow hunter.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll tell you what, Bill, if you'll tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us about, we want to talk about Iron Will Outfitters, what you guys do, how long you've been in business, and kind of go through the whole thing, man. So if you'll kind of take it from there and then we'll continue our conversation. I really want to get into talking about your broadheads, but first start with telling us about yourself and your business.
Yeah. So, I love bow hunting and I love mechanical engineering, and, now I focus the two together. So I've been a mechanical engineer for many years, worked for other companies, developing products for about 25 years or so before just starting my own company and focusing on, broadheads, arrow components, things that are bow hunting related. I grew up in Wisconsin, bow hunting whitetails. My late 20s, I moved to Colorado, and I've been here over 20 years now, bow hunting, elk and other western big game. What got me started in this is I had an elk. I shot at a bull elk, my first one that I got a shot at actually, and had a broadhead, stop at the scapula, and elk ran away with the whole arrow sticking out of it, and lost that bull, was pretty devastated, and decided to use my engineering skills and knowledge to first research and then eventually develop my own broadhead that for sure get through hide, bone, vitals, and get you a kill shot on that type of a shot on bigger animals. So spent many years developing it. And it was really early 2017, we really kind of launched the company, started selling it. So it's been 6 years or so now. The company's grown a lot. I think, initially people were wondering, why are these broadheads $20 more than, the ones I get at a department store? But I think we've had more and more customers use them, have experiences of excellent penetration through bones, and look and see the broadhead looks like new. It's not a single use. You can use them over and over. And I think, we've got a strong customer base that keep telling their buddies they got to try them. And the company's doing really well at this point.
No, that's really cool. And I like the fact that, just like you just said, they're not a single use. Most other broadheads on the market, some of them you'll get more than a single use out of it, or maybe you can change the blades or something like that. But they're really not designed to be used over and over again.
Yeah, whether they're just not strong enough or the hassle that you have to go through to replace blades, sharpen some of those, they can be really difficult. But what I do, and I shot the Iron Will single bevels last year, and I just used the Stay Sharp guide, and that thing is razor sharp. Every single time I shot a couple of them multiple times, and they came back to a razor sharp edge each time I sharpened them.
Yeah, I think that Stay Sharp guide, or the KME makes a broadhead guide too. I was just at a bear camp, and a guy was using that, and he was just getting, the hairs were just popping off his arm when he just if you can just lightly touch the broadhead blade to hairs and they're just like popping.
That's crazy.
Man, that was crazy sharp.
What did you say that guide was called? You said that there was another sharpener? Or was it
KME?
A KME, okay.
Stay Sharp makes like a plastic 3D printed type guide, and then KME makes like an all steel guide, but they're similar. They have like a roller, and you just kind of pull them backwards on stones or sandpaper, or and then maybe just buff and compound at the end if you want to. But he Cody from Cody Greenwood from Trad Lab was there, and he was the one sharpening, and he had stones that he'd go from 500 grit to 1,000 grit to, I think 2,000 grit was the last one, and it was just a high shine and super sharp.
Yeah, buffing it, mirror finish probably at that point. My son does a lot of knife sharpening and stuff, and he has one of those sharpness testers that has like the little fiber that you cut through, and it's on like a pressure sensor or whatever. And man, he's gotten he's gotten some knives and some. In fact, Bryce has one of your knives. Is it the K2? Is that which one you have?
I think it's the K2.
Anyhow, he's got one of those, and Wes sharpened that thing down to sharper than what a razor is comes at. I mean, that thing was just stupid sharp. And the cool thing about it is it'll hold that edge pretty good. Because usually if you take a knife down to that level of sharpness, you're going to go to cut something and you're going to roll that edge, or you may not be able to look at it, and visibly see it with your eyes, but you're rolling it. You know what I mean? Because it's just you're taking it down so fine. But we found with your knives and with the broadheads that you can get pretty crazy with it. Now the broadheads, they do take some time to sharpen. I guess, is that because of the steel that it's made out of or something? Or
it's it's A2 tool steel, so that's a steel used in metal stamping dies to cut other metals. It can be both very hard, so you can make it sharp and hold an edge, but also have great toughness and impact toughness.
Yeah.
And that's why that edge doesn't wear away very quickly. And then, I went through 5 different steels before I zeroed in on that one. I spent about a year just developing the heat treat process. We do a cryogenic treatment and a triple temper.
Okay.
And to maintain that high hardness. So it's 60 Rockwell C hardness. That's kind of what a high-end knife maker is trying to achieve for a hardness. So that gives it the hardness and strength in that edge, and that's why you can get a pretty very dead sharp edge and retain it as well pretty well. They're not terribly hard to sharpen. They're harder to sharpen than a soft steel like a 420 or something. But they're not it's not as bad as, say, some of the super steels that have some really hard carbide, a lot of big carbide particles. So, but yeah, this toughness is what's impressive, and that's why I think it works so well in a broadhead. I put one through a hog, a big boar's knuckle a few weeks ago in Texas, and it was like 2.5 inches of bone. And it just cut clean through and kept going, got an exit hole, and that broadhead looked like new afterwards. So I'm still amazed by how well they can cut bone and not get damaged.
That's crazy. So, and you said that your game plan or your target is to be somewhere around 500 grains on your arrow.
Yeah, it's usually about that. I test a lot of different arrow setups and our components and our broadheads. So, I go in here from shooting 100 grain heads to like our new 150 wide single bevel. And so it sometimes varies, but I'm generally around, I'd put it between 480 and 530 between my different arrow setups. And I kind of like that 500 grain range personally. I like to shoot long range. I like to practice. I got a range right outside here that I can shoot to 120 yards. Typically I'm shooting to like 50 and 100 yards kind of every day when I just go and shoot a few broadheads and field points. And I like to shoot Total Archery Challenge events.
Yeah.
So I kind of got to be able to shoot that 120 or more distance. So for me, I can do that with a 500 grain arrow with my bow, a dial sight. And I still find with that weight, I'm passing through, I passed through a big body, really big body bull elk a couple years ago at 82 yards and got a complete pass through the shoulder. And that arrow was 20 yards past it in the brush. So, I don't know why I need that than that, or any heavier than that. I still want to be able to shoot far. So it's been a good weight for me.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Golly.
So is that with 70 pounds?
Yeah, that was with 70 pounds.
Okay. Yeah. That's usually the weight I like to stick to too. I always tell people when they ask me, I say generally anywhere between 450 and 550, and it usually comes out to be in between 480 and 530 for my just draw length, how I set my arrows up, and just how everything usually works out. It seems to be about that. And I have had zero problems with anything I've shot. All the deer I've shot in this past year and years before that has always been pass-throughs, unless something crazy has to happen for me not to make a pass-through. That whether that's bad shot or just something out of the ordinary is happening, but it's been really, really consistent. And they're bearing into the dirt or into trees after that. And funny enough, I did have one of the single bevels go through a tree, and it was still popping hairs whenever it came out the other side. So that I was pretty impressed with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recommend that 450 to 550 in general also. And if people kind of don't know where to start, we've got some arrow charts on our website, ironwallfitters.com, where I just tell people, go look at those charts, and we've got one for all the different amounts of weight up front from 125 up to like 250. But I tell them, check out the chart with like 150 grain total up front and 175 grain total up front. And, look at your bow poundage, arrow length on there. And then on the chart, it'll show you what your proper spine is and then what your total arrow weight, FOC, ends up being. Picks up in that 450 to 550 range. Maybe just try a couple arrows at the different weights and see how it flies for you, see how you like the trajectory, and go from there.
Yeah, I think my biggest question, honestly, when it comes to building arrows is, of course, we have sharp broadheads. We like to get them to the weight that we want. But what you're seeing now, of course, we have 5 mil arrows, we got 4 mil arrows, and I have a hard time picking one because, of course, 5 mil arrows generally are going to be a little bit heavier, and shooting stiffer spines, it's hard to get a lighter shaft so that you can put a heavier insert and broadhead on there without going almost out of your comfort zone with weight. And so we go to a 4 mil, but then you have that trade-off, and it just seems like there's not very many good 4 mil components out there.
There are no good 4 mil components. I mean, everybody has tried. The ones that you guys have made have been the 5 mil, right, for the standard axis?
They have a 4 mil too, but it's deep 6, I believe. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our 4 mil is deep 6, and yeah, I don't like half outs or outskirts. They add a tolerance stack up, so it's harder to get that broadhead to spin true, and then they have that lever bend really easily on impact. So, I like building that strength down into the arrow. I like to having that arrow, the broadhead, shank aligned to the idea of the arrow. It's kind of guaranteed it's going to spin true. Put our impact collar over it to kind of reinforce it, overlap the hit insert inside. That's a system I really like. And so with a lot of new bow hunters, I direct them towards the 5 millimeter for that reason. They can still use standard heads and they get that reinforced hit system there. But personally, when I shoot the 4mm, or, I know quite a few guys that are serious out west, big game hunters that like to shoot the micros to try and get a little advantage of wind drift, drag. And those guys are all shooting deep six, actually, with our system. Cause it's, I know the industry has gone away from it for, a lot of companies have anyway. Yep. It's, it never really took off to be a high volume, and most companies are just looking at the bottom line, and they can get better earnings if they just make one thing a standard head, and don't add the cost and complexity of having deep six models and things. But I think there's still several broadhead companies that support deep six threads, and we support it pretty heavily. I think we got 11 different broadhead models that have that deep six. So for those out there that don't know the difference, 4mm arrow or a 165, 166 ID arrow, the threads on the standard broadhead are 832, and they don't fit inside that arrow. So you have to mount it out in front of the arrow with an outsert or half out. So, Easton developed the deep six system when they came out with the 4mm arrow years ago. It's got a 640 thread, so smaller, finer thread, and then a smaller shank diameter. That's that 165. So that will fit down inside that arrow. But if you go to a system, you only can use deep six broadheads, field points in that. But I think that's a better system than a half outer outsert. We also have what we call our Snyder core system, which is really designed more as a glue-in. It's got the deep six threads on the end, but it's got a 1 inch long shank, so it's even more reinforced bore. I like that system with using hot melt glue and just bond everything down in there as a glue-in. That's a really strong, solid connection, and it spins great and everything as well. But it's custom. Then you're stuck with really just using glue-in broadheads or field points there.
So the Snyder core that you have, so that's actually built onto the broadhead and then slides into the 4mm arrow, or is it an insert that the broadhead screws into?
You can, so it uses the deep hit inserts, and there's kind of two ways you can. So the Snyder core broadheads will have this 1 inch long shank on them, and then the 640 threads behind that.
Okay.
So it's
got it.
broadheads or field points have that designed long shank to them. We do make a tool where you can push the hit insert down in that 1 inch, and bond it down in there, and then just screw and unscrew, either Snyder core broadhead or Snyder core field point into that. Other companies' heads won't work with that, but that's one option. The other option is you just thread or you can bond just the broadhead in by itself if you just want that amount of weight, or if you want to add weight, you can put a different one of these deep six hits on the back of it. We make them at 15, 25, 50, 75, 100 grain. So you can reinforce, 3 inches of arrow through the core with solid, hardened steel if you want to, with that system.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And that's one of the things that I have about the 4mm systems that are out there is that, at impact, that insert pops out of the side of the arrow, whether you're shooting an FMJ, which is what I shoot. I've had it happen on those. I've never had it happen on an animal. I've had it happen on a target, because most 3D targets will have that metal frame inside of them. And I don't know about you, but every now and then I'll make a bad shot and somehow that arrow will find that stupid metal frame inside that target. And, man, it'll just destroy the end of the arrow. The arrow will be perfectly fine, but the insert will break off out of the end of the arrow, and because of that, the arrow and the insert are both trash at that point. So,
well, that rebar in the target is that's a really rough test for anything.
Oh yeah, it's pretty unforgiving.
Yeah,
pretty unforgiving.
But I was at the Pennsylvania TAC Tall Archery Challenge a couple of weeks ago, and when people were walking up to me talking about arrows at our stand there, I was just taking anybody that had a half out or outsert, I'd ask to see their arrows, and I'd spin them on an arrow spinner, and you should have seen how bad a lot of these were wobbling. And you know, some of them they said were new, they hadn't shot them yet, but a lot of them were just ones that they shot a 3D course for the day, and you know, you hit a hard spot on a 3D target with a lot of those aluminum half outs, and they get a little bend in them just from that little bit of impact.
Right.
Yeah, they're not good from that point on, and it's a shame. And it's good to finally start seeing people pay attention to it, because we pay good money for these arrows, and we shoot a lot. And so it's just really unfortunate for your average bow hunter to build an arrow like that and not have good options for inserts. And not many people put as much emphasis on the components like that, and I think they should, because a cheap aluminum insert or half out is not going to hold up to any kind of tough impact. And before you know it, that good arrow that spun true, once you spin a broadhead on there after shooting it for a while at targets and everything, it's just not going to fly the same.
Yeah. And honestly, you'll see this in so many different areas of life, but it's the simplest thing that'll shut an operation down. You know, what we're talking about right now, an insert, a simple little component can be such a major issue. And you know, like what you were just talking about, Bill, just taking that thing and spinning it after a day of shooting 3D targets. I mean, that's not something that I've ever done before. Not intentionally. I mean, and I've shot a lot of 3D and have done a lot of that stuff, but I've never gone and said, hey, I want to go check my arrows again. And I'll do it after shooting a deer. Mm-hmm. I'll check the arrow, I'll flex it, and I'll check it. I'll spin test it, make sure everything's good. And we'll typically do, like with my arrows last year, I put everything together with hot melt. So if I needed to change something, it wasn't an issue. You know, just heat it up, move it, take it out, whatever it needed to be done. But, you know, like I used to do a lot of construction work. I can't tell you how many cat keys I kept in my truck because somebody would forget their key to a piece of equipment and it would shut the whole day down, you know, because we'd be working on a pipeline in the middle of nowhere. And if you didn't have a key for something, I mean, you basically had a 40-ton paperweight instead of an excavator, you know? So, so it is important to pay attention to the little things.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that too much, and I've talked to arrow companies directly about this too, that, you know, they're supporting largely a target market too, not just bow hunters. So they don't want to add a lot of cost in the components for the people that don't really need it. And, you know, they're trying to make as much profit as they can. So a lot of these components you get free with your arrows are like 10-cent aluminum parts. And so you've got, you know, $15, $20 arrow, you've got all this time and effort into this bow hunt, and then you got like a 10-cent component that's going to, you know, make or break some things if you get a hard side impact on a bone or something like that. You know, reinforced his system holds together really well on those hard side impacts on bones. But I can tell you a lot of half outs, outserts are just going to bend right over, stop penetration right there, you know. And it's really important for people to spin every arrow that's going into their quiver with the broadhead on it. It's really important that they spin that and make sure that those components they have didn't get bent over the summer of target shooting, and you might not just notice it just looking at it, but if you spin it and the tip of that broadhead's, you know, wobbling all over the place, it's not going to fly well. It's going to give you some trouble there.
Yeah. Yeah, that I agree with that 100%. What is a good arrow spinner that is good for a consumer? That's always something that's hard to find. You know, Pine Ridge has one. Isn't it Pine Ridge that has the one that's just it has two little discs on either end of something that looks like it was 3D printed?
I don't even know.
That one's for super cheap, maybe $20 or something.
Yeah, it's extremely cheap. So, you know, how accurate are you getting to look at your arrow with using something like that? Man, I have no idea. We use one from Last Chance Archery, but I mean, that thing was $600. The average consumer, the average person, they don't need to go and buy something like that. You know, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, even that Pine Ridge, I mean, that one's good enough to see if you got a problem. Sometimes arrow itself is shifting around in those little discs, and then you kind of have to pay attention. Is the arrow also wobbling, or does the arrow look pretty good and just the tip's moving? But that one works okay. Then there's some better ones, like you said, Last Chance, I think. Fire Knock makes a good one with bearings, but then you get up into the $80 to $100 probably price range. But I know Marty, our camera guy, had some that he just got off the internet that were two little blocks where he just spaced them apart and spin, and those look pretty decent. I couldn't tell you what the name was, but I think there's quite a few options out there for arrow spinners.
Yeah, okay.
They'll do the job.
All right, that's pretty cool. I haven't seen that one. But I think it's, anytime we're doing something like this, telling people they should be spinning their arrows, let's
not explain how.
Yeah, I'm not trying to sell them something. I don't carry this stuff to sell to people, but if there's something good for people to use, let's find it and at least put them in the right direction.
You can put hard plastic or something or hardwood and just put the point of your arrow down and spin it. I mean, you'll also see if your arrow's wobbling back and forth, you'll know the tip's off. Kind of a quick in the field test I'll do sometimes if I shoot at something and pick my arrow back up and want to see if I can keep on with it or not.
Yeah, for sure. So you recently went to Saskatchewan, right? And did some bear hunting? I
did, yeah. I got a giant bear up there.
you got a huge bear. Congrats on that, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, thanks. It's man, that was exciting. I've been up there. I think this is my fourth trip up there, and I've seen some really big bears. I got a good bear last year that was, I think it was 882 pounds. It made Boone and Crockett with a skull. I mean, that was a good bear for sure. And I was hoping to maybe even get one bigger because I'd seen bigger ones, but nothing too close by. But yeah, when this guy started coming, it's funny. I heard some splashing in like a lake, and I thought, man, there's either like a moose or a bear back in that woods somewhere. And I see him coming through the woods, and my heart's just pounding out of my chest. Look at the size of the thing. He stood up on his hind legs and reached his nose up. I swear he was 9 or 10 feet. And he came in, and then I didn't think I was going to get shot. He was just kind of circling through the thick, but he stopped in a spot, and I saw, man, I think I can slip an arrow between these two branches and make the shot. And I took the shot. He took off, and I shot a new wide single bevel, and I've got it on video. He was dead within 5 seconds. He took off running, and I saw him drop and flop once. He's done. And yeah, he had zero ground shrinkage when I walked up to him. He had some ground swells or anything.
Oh my gosh,
that's always good.
So
he was 473 pounds.
Good grief. That is unreal, man. That is unreal. So, well, that's definitely one that you're not going to forget, or that you hope to not soon forget, at least. What an experience. So that was with the new broadhead that you guys just launched, like maybe a month ago or so, wasn't that? Or was it? What is this now? This is June.
Yeah,
was that
3 or 4 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah. So, tell me about that. What was the reason for building that one? To make
we just to give you a little history, all our heads originally were double bevel. So you grind both sides to make the edge, and then my initial research and testing on it, I like double bevel a little bit better than single bevel for like the strength of the edge as you drive through something. If you have equal pressure on both sides, it's a little bit inherently stronger edge or enough sharpness and strength. Single bevel, you're just grinding one side. You got all the pressure on that side, and it's more likely to want to roll over or break out that edge because of the way the pressure is on it. But we had so many people requesting it a couple of years ago that I decided to try and design the best one I could, and played around with that angle of the bevel to make sure it was strong enough to go through bone without rolling the edge or breaking out. And so we launched our single bevels. I guess it's been 2 years ago now, and those have become very popular. And as soon as we launched our standard size single bevel, people started asking for a wide single bevel, because we already made a wide double bevel, which has been really popular for
That's what I shoot. Is the wide
bears.
Bevel.
Yeah, that's what I've been shooting too for whitetails, bears, even elk on closer shots and stuff too. And it's been a great head, but people wanted the wider one, so I spent the last year prototyping, testing that, and so far this year, I took a trip to Texas and shot a few big hogs with it. The penetration of the hogs was impressive. I mentioned that one through the knuckle already. Also had one where it was quartering too slightly, and it was like a one lung liver. Gut really hit, and that pig took off, and it died in 60 yards with a single lung hit and liver. So it was doing a lot of trauma for it to die that quickly.
Now, is that have a bleeder or no?
Yeah, it's optional, but I like bleeders. I was shooting with the bleeder. But because it's wide and it's solid, it's 150 grain on up. And I normally shoot hunters or 120. I normally shoot 125, so that's kind of my main ones that I shoot. But in this case, I could just put the 150 on, shoot a 15 grain titanium hit and a 10 grain titanium collar, and still get 175 up front. So that kind of stress people to just look at the total weight up front you want to hit, and don't feel like you need to shoot a 100 grain head or 125 head. Just look at the total weight up front, because we can do the reinforced hit system for as low as 25 grains total for the hit and collar, or up to 125 if you want to go that heavy. So that's how I shift from 100 grain to 125 to 150 for different testing, is just shift the components that go with it. One other pig I want to tell you about, there's a group of pigs. I drew back, took aim on one, and then some from behind kept moving up, and they came right in front of that pig as my arrow was on the way there. And I ended up shooting a pig through the skull, like right through the, right between the eye and the ear, in and out through both sides. It just, it was the quickest kill ever, dropped it dead instantly. But that arrow was, 10 feet or so past the pig, and it just went through just heavy bone. And again, the broadhead looked like new, and it, had no trouble getting to that bone. It's crazy how well these cut through bone and don't get damaged there.
That is pretty wild. So you said that you like the double bevel a little bit better because of it not putting so much pressure on one side of the head, and a lot of your initial testing, it would hold up a little bit better, I guess. Or I don't want to say something. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I want to make sure that I'm saying
I would
what
say,
you're
like,
saying.
like as a structural engineer, and I'm cutting through bone, what design would I like better for, if I'm analyzing like the stress as it's driving through bone? The double bevel is inherently a bit stronger edge. So, but with our steel and the 32 degree edge angle I chose for a single bevel, it's strong enough to go through bone undamaged. So it's doing fine. But that's the reason why I like double bevel initially better. Now, as far as like performance through animals, they both work really well, perform really well. Single bevels create a rotation, so that pressure on that angle makes it rotate as it goes through the animal. So that's kind of a cool feature of a single bevel, and really I think why they become more popular, or people want to give it a try, see what that does. And what I see and I like the single bevel with a bleeder that's also a single bevel grind. Right. And then you get a rotation of really a kind of a four blade through there. And I've shot a number of deer and elk now where that entrance hole looks like almost a perfect square.
Yeah.
From that rotation.
Yeah,
so,
I've seen that before. That's pretty wild how it makes a square hole like that.
Yeah. I don't understand exactly why it looks almost perfectly square, but that rotation is definitely opening up holes and making them, some are kind of circular, but a lot of them have been looking like straight square, which is cool. There's no way that's going to close up on you. You're going to get some blood out of that hole and onto the ground for a good blood trail.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt about that, for sure. So tell me, you said that the first bull elk that you had a chance to take, you lost it. You don't have to tell me the broadhead, but was it a mechanical or a fixed blade?
It was a fixed blade. It was a cheaper, 3-blade chisel point, thinner blades. It's in studying different heads since then, I just had a guy 2 days ago at a shoot that I was at come up and tell me that he was using a 3-blade chisel point head. And it's one of the most popular ones right now. And, he shot an elk in the shoulder blade. Sounded like the same hit I had, really. And his elk ran away with the whole arrow sticking out of it. So I don't think people realize like that 3-blade chisel point takes a lot of force to get through the scapula. For one, the chisel points take a lot of force just to push through the hide. So you lose some energy starting there versus a cut on contact. Like ours takes minimal force to cut through the hide to start with. But when you hit that bone, and then with a 3-blade, you're trying to split that bone out in, 3 directions at once. I feel it has kind of a wedging effect that a lot of times it just stops right there. Doesn't get through. Not always. Sometimes it'll penetrate through. That's especially if you hit that thinnest part of the scapula. But if you hit more towards the edge of the scapula, it's a little thicker. That T-shaped rib to the middle is thicker. As you get down towards the knuckle. So anyway, that's what it was. Anyways, it was a cheaper replacement blade, 3-blade chisel point. Mm-hmm. And mechanical would have been even worse if it did.
Yeah. That would have been bad. Like we did a podcast recently with one of our customers, and he was talking about how when he watches hunting shows, he just doesn't understand why when they shoot the animal, the deer is running off with the arrow. He's been hunting for 55 years, right? 55 years.
Yeah, it was something like that. And long time.
And he's like, I can't remember a deer running off with my arrow. And he started out, of course, shooting a recurve, and then started shooting compound in the 70s when they became legal in Georgia. And that's what he still shoots today. He's 84, 85 years old. And he's like, I just don't understand. And I can vouch for him, man. He hunts on our farm, and I've gone out to pick him up, at night when he is done hunting. And I remember one night in particular, he said, well, I shot one, but I'm not sure if I got it because of, the arrow just kind of, I shot it and I couldn't see the arrow anymore. And then I see the arrow just laying on the ground over there. And I said, I think you're okay, because he was telling me that as he was getting down. Well, as I pulled up the fire break to kind of get close to him to get him, I saw the deer's eyes about 20 yards, 20 yards down the fire break. So I knew we were fine before I ever talked to him. But, he's just a character, man. To know him is to love him, because he is been doing it for 55 years, and he is just as on fire for it right now as he's ever been, I think.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
It's so cool.
That's great.
Yeah, it's so cool for sure. So you said 37-degree angle or bevel on the 32. So why 32? Like, is that normal? Like in tools or like medical tools? When you think about stuff like this, cutting bone and things like that. Doctors need to cut bone sometimes, and they're not always using saws, I would assume. So is that kind of where you got that from, or?
Not really. I started out, I called Dr. Ashby, told him I was going to build some single bevels prototypes and test. And I wanted to get his, input on what he knew about edge angle and things. And he preferred a 25-degree edge angle, but really after talking to him quite a bit, I kind of realized that it's because the sharpness was better. And I think sharpness is a much bigger factor than bevel size or shape. That sharpness, edge retention, keeping that force low to cut through. And he agrees. He agrees with that, by the way. It just doesn't. People don't ever notice that in his testing. I think it's like number 6. He calls it like edge finish or something like that. But he's really talking about sharpness and the importance there too. But he kind of like 25-degree. He said with the steels he was using at that time, any thinner, I think would have been very weak for him, but it had a good sharpness at 25. And so that's where I started, was 25 degree, my prototyping. I know that in the industry, it's anywhere from maybe 20 to 40. But most of them are around 25. So that's where I started. But when I was testing, when I would hit, John Lusk was doing a little bit of testing on the prototypes for me too. And he said when he shot through a steel plate, it was creating some edge chatter. And this isn't thick plate. It's, it might be 16th inch, but it's thinner plate. He saw some edge chatter with that single bevel at 25 degrees where we did not have any with our double bevel, which was it's a 19 degree per side on the double bevel. So 38 total. And I also saw when I was shooting through, I was getting cattle femurs to shoot through to test on heavy bone. I was also seeing a little bit of edge damage or edge roll there. So but I didn't want to go, 40, 45 because it's inherently not quite as sharp of an edge if you got too big of an angle to it. So right. I stepped up from 5 to 32, sent some samples to John. He shot through the steel plate. They look perfect afterwards. You can watch that video on his YouTube channel too. I think the, Iron Will initial single bevel test. But, and then through heavy bone, I was getting zero damage as well. So that's where I stopped at 32. So yeah, that's why I ended up there. And it's not really a standard. There's not, if you look at, most knife sharpeners and things aren't really made for double bevel edges, and they're made for, 15 to 25 degree for the most part. So 32 is kind of an odd, bit of an odd size. Sharpen it. You can use the Stay Sharp guide makes it one for it. Cami makes one that works for it. And then a lot of I use knife sharpener where you remove the blade from the broadhead, clamp it up. And then you have set angles you can go to, or some have an adjustable angle. Like Cami makes a knife sharpener like that. Wicked Edge, I think, Worksharp, I think makes one now too, but where you can set that angle to whatever you want. You can marker up the bevel and set the angle till it fits. And I've found that, some of those work fine too with that 32 degree bevel to touch them up.
Okay. All right. Well, good deal.
Kinatrek boots. Kinatrek is based out of Oregon, and they make high-end hiking boots. We carry them here in the shop, and I have to say how impressed I am with these boots. Personally, I own a pair of the Mountain Extreme 400s, and from the moment I put them on, I could tell just how high quality they are. These are incredibly comfortable, and they provide plenty of support. You'll come by the shop and give them a try.
So, something that's also, you can't look at your broadhead without seeing the tip. You've got a Tonto tip, and that's, there's a reason behind that, I'm sure. Instead of just making it come to a good point. Tell me about that. How you came up with wanting to do the Tonto.
Yeah, it'd be cheaper to just make it come to one straight point and not add more edges to sharpen for me. But what I found in the early testing, early testing, I was a 3-blade guy prior to having that failure, and then I started testing kind of all different heads. But I saw that 2-blade cut on contact were definitely penetrating with lower force and doing well on hide soft tissue, but I was often breaking the tips on heavy bone impacts, and I think that Ashby saw this as well, and he talks about the Tonto tip being an improvement. But it really does two things to help it. That long, narrow, skinny tip you get, if you just have one long kind of triangular shaped blade, it becomes weak because, in bending stress, the longer it is, the higher the stress is going to be on that tip. So as I shortened it up, it's a shorter, wider, beefier tip for that reason, and the angle is not so steep to it. So it adds a lot of strength. That's the main purpose, was adding strength for bone, getting through bone. The other improvement is it reduces total blade surface area when you shorten up the blade overall length and make a different angle right at the tip. And so it flies a lot better too than like a longer, like 3-to-1 or something, some long, narrow.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're also able to, I mean, get it just as sharp. I mean, I've take these things out of the pack when I get them from you, and it's just, man, they're nasty sharp.
Oh yeah, I mean, sharpening that tip I did find a little more difficult than, of course, the rest of the broadhead, but it's doable. But I also found that I really didn't need to resharpen the tip as much because it held up so well. It was mostly just the edge of the blade.
Yep. Yeah, I think if you sharpen the two longer edges on each side, that's the majority of what you need to do for, good performance, to keep like slicing everything as it's passing through. And yeah, I think that tip, it's the same angle. It's not really difficult to resharpen. It just takes, it's one more edge to set up, so it has a little more time when you're resharpening the blades.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime you start getting into something like that, it's hard to hold the blade at the right angle and sharpen that point. That's the struggle that I've had with it, with trying to sharpen that piece right there. But I mean, listen, I think these broadheads are awesome, and I think that I think your story is super cool, of why you got into it. I mean, so are you still, you said you were in the mechanical engineering field for 20 years or so, and then you kind of started doing this. Is this a full-time thing for you now? Is this what you're doing?
Yeah, it is full-time. I quit my corporate job in January of 2017. And really I didn't pull a paycheck from the company for 2 or 3 years. So I was doing side jobs to pay the bills, but went all in on it at that point. And then after I think 2 years, make enough to pay the bills, and just went 100% on this. So yeah, it's my full-time job at this point, and then some.
I understand that. I completely understand that. Well, I think that's a super cool part of it as well. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I'll be 41 this year, so I've been in the workforce for over 20 years now, and all except for 3.5. Well, we'll say all except for 4 years of that time, I've worked for somebody else, for 4 years, I worked for somebody else. All the rest of the time, I've been doing some type of entrepreneurial endeavors, and I love to see people do it, especially when it's something that you got into because you saw this need because of an experience that you had, and you were like, man, I can do something better. I can figure this out. And really, the archery industry, it doesn't do a good job lending itself well to something like what you're doing. So, and I say that as an encouragement, okay? I mean, for you to be able to do something like this where you're going up against other broadheads that, the going rate for a 3-pack of broadheads is $50, okay? And it is just that. I mean, it's like it's a disposable razor, I mean, that's the way I look at it, is when you pick up a pack of those broadheads, it's like you're grabbing a little Bic razor that you want to shave with, and it's probably going to cut your hair the first time, and that's about all you're going to get out of that thing. Shave your face one time, throw it away.
It's a 10% blade there. There's a roll of sheet steel going on one side of the machine, and the blades are coming out the other. And yeah, those blades cost dimes, where mine cost many dollars to make. It's just, and it's, when I first launched the company and started meeting people in the industry and told them I was making a broadhead, they're like, oh yeah, there's a lot of broadheads out there. It's not a good business to get into. I'm like, I don't care. I'm making the best broadhead for me because I want to be a better bow hunter, and it's working great. And I'm tired of making them all and sharpening them all myself for my friends and buddies. So I decided to go to production, even refine the process more, make it better. Mainly for me, it was like, I want an unlimited supply of broadheads for myself. And if I can, write off some hunts, make a little money, I didn't think it'd be a full-time job really because of the price of them. And I thought probably be a hard sell. And, it was for a little while, but people that used them and realized, that it's not the same product. It's, this is a big step change up in the performance you can get. But yeah, and it's been fun to work on something that, I'm excited to get up every day and, go test broadheads, a lot of my testing is going hunting somewhere, which is always a blast, but, just focusing on things I really care about, which is, improving bow hunting and doing mechanical engineering. So it's been good.
Yeah, that's really cool. That is super cool. So what is it that when you're going through doing this, you say that you love getting up every day, you love getting to do this. Share some of that with us about what about it makes your day go by so quickly. Because if you love doing something, you don't feel like you're grinding, right? No pun intended, because you probably feel like you're grinding a lot because you're literally grinding on metal. But anyway, so when you're going through doing that, I love to see people start something. I think that I believe in that there was a God, that there is a God that created everything, and that's my favorite name for God is Creator God. And so I love to create stuff. I love to use my hands to make something. Like I told you before, we were kind of going back and forth. We're getting ready to launch a new product, which I'm not ready to kind of let that out of the bag yet, but I'm so excited about it because it's something that's brand new. It's we know there's a need for it. It's something that we've done a lot of testing on to figure out, what is a really good way for us to make this product and take it to market and do it in a little bit different way. And in a lot of ways, we're doing kind of what you did with your broadheads, where you're going into the marketplace that when you ask somebody in the archery industry, they'll be like, just like they told you, man, that space is kind of flooded. Don't you think you should try something else? Which that's the part that I really want you to hit on right now is, and I know I'm going a long way to ask a question, but when you have somebody that you share your idea with and they kind of, instead of put wind in your sails, they kind of try to tear a hole in your sails, how do you get through those times?
Yeah, for me, it's I feel the best, and I'm excited to get up and work when it's stuff that are kind of core to my skills or my gifts. There, I graduated #1 in my class in mechanical engineering. I'm just, physics and science and math. They just come to me. I can just see it. I can solve complex problems, in my head often if I just look at something and think about it. And I love being out in the wilderness. I love being outdoors. And it's from the time I was a kid. My grandfather, my father were bow hunters. They loved the outdoors, and just, it's in my DNA, I think, there too. And so, and it's been amazing how many, like, getting out in the wilderness for, a 7-day, 10-day backpack hunt, when you totally clear your head and everything's like, it's just, life's more clear, I think, out there, like, what's important, what's not. And it's amazing. I'll have some problem that I've been thinking about working on for a while, and it just be clear to me, like, what's the answer to it. So I've developed a lot of things, in my head out in the wilderness at times. But when I'm doing those things, it's just, it just feels like where I ought to be, what I ought to be doing. And that's why it's I just enjoy it. It's easy to get up every day and do that. And I would say as the company's grown and gotten bigger, and there's just a lot of work to running a company, which I don't really enjoy.
Yeah.
So every day is roses for sure there. In fact, I'd like to get somebody to run the company for me so I can just develop the products and, go hunting. But I'm not at that point yet.
Right.
But
No, I understand. Man, as a small business owner, I think the biggest challenge as a small business owner is making sure that every dollar that you spend is completely effective, right? Like you don't want to spend $1 and get a 50% effective rate out of that dollar, because every dollar matters so stinking much. So,
yeah, at this point I've hired a team of people to work for me, and I don't want to cut any jobs either, so I want to be careful with what money I'm spending on what, make sure the company's still doing well, and I can keep paying my employees going forward too. So it's, now I've got other people that I want to keep the company doing well to take care of them too,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, your team, makes all the difference in the world. We can accomplish so much individually, but man, without a team surrounding us to really work together and row the boat together, golly, it's you can find yourself going in circles pretty quickly without a good team. So I think that's a great outlook on it that you've got. And man, just to hear your passion for what you're doing, you took this passion for hunting and being outside and figured out how to make a business out of it, and did it in the face of what could have been some catastrophic discouragement at times, I'm sure. So I just props to you, man, for working this thing and finding a way to do it. I just think it's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, listen, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Is there anything that we can do to help support you guys, man? We want to see you keep growing. We want to continue to grow our business. We want to put stuff like this in people's hands. Because I'll tell you, just from our end, when we keep your broadheads in a glass case, and we'll show them to people, and we'll offer them to people when we're doing arrow builds. Like I say that we're an outfitter, so we'll have somebody come in and we'll find out what it is they're doing. Okay, you're going to be whitetail hunting here in Georgia, or you're going to Iowa on a whitetail hunt, or you're planning to go to Colorado on an elk hunt, and we'll outfit them to do the whole thing. Set them up with a bow, build the arrows for whatever they need, the whole 9 yards. And so that's the opportunity that we'll take to really start having broadhead conversations with them. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast, is so we get to really talk through, why do you offer double bevel and single bevel broadheads? What's the point? Why do you do both? And we talked about that today. So we'll be able to point people to it and say, hey, listen, you can go check on our podcast episode number, whatever this number is going to be. And we actually talked with the guy that developed these broadheads, and hear for yourself what the difference is about these broadheads. Right.
Yeah.
And then when they look at our quivers and see that we're shooting them, two of us are shooting them. We've got one guy that shoots kudus. I don't know if you're familiar with those broadheads or not.
Yep. I met the owner there too.
Yeah, they're a single bevel broadhead, and he loves them. Michael loves those things. So it's, I think what you guys are doing, I really like it. Now that I know your story, I love it even more. And we want to do stuff that's going to help you grow your business. So,
well, I appreciate you just helping spread the word about our broadheads. However you can do that. That's great. And yeah, thanks for having me on. It's good to get to answer questions, and people might be searching. A lot of people are searching right now, and they might have heard of ironwood broadheads. They're searching to get more info on them. So, it's always good when they find a podcast where I'm on it and have talked for an hour, that they can listen to the story. And a lot of times that's what it takes to get them to give them a try.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right. One of the other things I was going to ask you about, you said that I was reading on your website with the arrows that you guys build. So did you build an actual mechanical fletching jig that you fletch your arrows with?
what I did is I worked with Easton to make one that was a 3-degree, that had 3-degree forks for putting on, because they had fletching machines already there at their factory in Indiana, and worked with them to have ones, but those were all 1 degree, and I really like to have more than 1 degree, get some more rotation. 1 degree, I just find sometimes that arrow can knuckleball for a long time with that 1 degree, just enough to get it going. So it's been a 2-year project working with them to get forks made, some tooling done with these forks where they're 3 degree, and then get them to, I got AAE to make. So I did a university study this past year where I sponsored it, and I'm an adjunct instructor of mechanical engineering there. So I've been involved with the senior design project class as one of the faculty directors for several years. And this past year, I sponsored a program and directed it, looking at arrow vane designs for improved, bow hunting, arrow flight with fixed blade broadheads. And we studied, 6 of the most popular vanes out there, along with this, that hunter profile that's used on a max hunter. I had AAE make up 3 different stiffnesses to also include in the test. And from that, this hybrid hunter vane did the best in the testing overall. And we looked at accuracy, stability, drag, wind drift, spin up, and sound. And if we factor in all those, this vane looked the best for that, with accuracy and stability kind of being my primary concerns, shooting broadheads, fixed blade broadheads well at long range. So I worked with AE to get that vane in production. We sell them on our website too. It's Iron Will Hybrid Hunter vane. It's exclusive to us.
Okay, so it is an actual different. It's a different vane than the Hybrid Hunter vane, then.
Yeah, currently there's a Max Hunter that looks just like it, profile wise, but this is a different vane because the material's different. Yeah, the stiffness.
Oh, okay.
I bet it sticks better too. I've had some trouble getting the Max Hunters to stick before.
Yeah, this isn't that Max material. It's their hybrid material, so it sticks really well, bonds really well with just some Loctite. Loctite 408, I think, is what we use in our factory. But it's it's working well. And so we're now selling full length fletch shafts with those vanes on them, or just the vanes if people want that. Or we're doing a full custom build too, where I have a machinist in a machine center accurately cutting and facing off both ends to make them really perfectly square, and installing components and do a full arrow builds for people if they want with that Iron Will Hybrid Hunter vanes on there.
That is super cool. So is Easton actually fletching the arrows for you, or you guys just worked with them and came up with the tool?
They're fletching them for me.
Okay. Man, that's wild.
Yeah.
That is super cool. Yeah, when I read that you had done that, I'd actually worked with a machinist. We're actually working on some stuff right now, and I worked with with him about trying to figure out how to build a mechanical fletching jig, because I just feel like all the jigs that are on the market, there's a lot of inconsistencies that can be had, and I would love to be able to put something out there that's just head and shoulders above anything else that you can get. Because
this is what we're using now is like $20,000 of tooling versus a $20 fletching jig you're gonna buy. So it's all like hardened metal, very precisely machined and fit together, and some archery shops are great. A lot of them, you get for a 3-degree helical, and you're gonna get something that's not even close, and it's not going to be the same, this week versus next week kind of thing. But
right,
and if you do it yourself and you set up a jig and leave them there, you're going to get consistent. You should get a pretty consistent angle. But I just wanted. There's a lot of people out there that don't want to do things themselves and just want somebody to point to them and say, hey, just get this. It's going to work well for you. So that's what I was trying to do with these arrows, is just have a consistent angle on all the vanes that they're going to get. And yeah, we'll cut and square it for you if you want and build the whole thing up.
That's cool. That's really neat, man. Well, listen, I don't want to keep you any longer. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I just think it's super cool, and we'll be talking again soon, man, for sure. Look forward to continuing to watch your story and working with you on stuff as we have opportunities.
Yeah, and I everyone want to say it's been an absolute privilege talking to you here today. I'm a big fan of your stuff, and I love seeing what you're doing, and just keep it up.
Heck yeah.
That's great, guys. Really good talking to you. And, yeah, let's keep in touch. Have a good luck with your hunting season. Won't be too long before we'll be back in the woods here.
Oh, man.
Can't wait.
Yeah, we talk about it every chance we get. So, for sure. All right, man. Have a good day. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, you too. Take care, guys.
All right, see you.
Bye.